It's always a little intimidating to hear your own bio because sometimes it's expectations and sometimes it's But I am so excited to be here with you today to talk about the work of the League of Women Voters and how it matches your theme, and to talk about voting. It is just so exciting as we stand here just days, less than 2 weeks from November 5th, to be able to talk about this, such an important part of everything that we do, which is, our democracy. And I'm going to start by just talking a bit about vision, because I really was so excited to hear that this was your theme. And I read that wonderful description that Ricky read about, what is vision? It's that physical thing. It's being able to see you. But there's such a spiritual, internal part of what vision is. You each have some kind of vision for yourself, for what you want in your work, for your creative life, for your home life, for your community. Just the mere fact that you're here, that you're spending your time doing this on a Friday morning, indicates such a level of commitment to your community. And so that's what I want you to just kind of take a moment and think about. What is your vision? And how does that vision align with what you want for your community? How does that vision align with what you want for your state? How does that vision align with what you want for our country? Whoops. Because that's all about what the League is too. So the League is all about democracy for all. We were founded in about 1923, shortly after women got the right to vote in 1920. And now, for most of you in here, that is like a million gazillion years ago. Well, and to be fair, it is kind of for me too. But it feels a whole lot closer for me because my mother died just a few years ago. And when my mother was born in 1917, she did not have the right to vote. 3 years later, women were granted the right to vote. And that means that when my mother first started voting at 21, it was really, really new. Women had only voted in just a few elections. So for me, women's rights and the right to vote, every time I think of that, I think of my mother. And I think of how that is so much nearer than we sometimes remember. So the League is a women-led, nonpartisan grassroots organization. And again, founded with the idea of trying to help women become prepared for this new thing. However, we are so much more than that now. And we really have a vision of an inclusive democracy where our democracy has a place for everyone. So we look at things like voting rights and voting suppression and money in politics through the lens of social justice. When you see this slide, you see all these famous professional athletes. And what does that have to do with democracy? It's not a spectator sport. It's not something you can sit on the sidelines and just watch happen and assume it's going to continue to work as well as you want it to or have experienced in the past. It is not a spectator sport. Again, the fact that you're here and that you're participating in this kind of a curious intellectual activity indicates that you get that. But many people do not. And many people are sitting on the sidelines and watching. So in the League of Women Voters, we say vote like your democracy depends upon it, because it does. We, the people, that wonderful first 3 words of the preamble of our Constitution, we, the people, we are who have that responsibility, that obligation, that opportunity to protect our democracy. And at the most fundamental level, the way we do that is by voting. So let's talk about voting and our vision and how that fits with your vision and what on earth that has to do with, some of the things else that we talk about with that word. So the League of Women Voters, we care a whole lot about voter turnout. You probably can't see a lot of the things on that screen, but voter turnout in the United States has gone up a bit over the last few years, but it still averages around 60 to 62%. Unlike other countries like Turkey or Belgium or Sweden, where voter turnout averages 78%. And there are countries where it's even higher. And here's something I want to call your attention to, because it's an important thing that relates to decisions you're going to be making on your ballot in North Dakota. So in the most recent election, the primary, only 20% of North Dakota eligible voters voted. 20%. 20%. I want you to really wrap your arms around that too as you think about decisions you're going to be making on your ballot. Now, the good news is you're more likely to be voting. Many of you, I'm sure, in this room are millennials. And in the last election, your group saw the biggest increase in voter turnout. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for voting. This is some information from America's Health Rankings. Now, statistically, it's an interesting thing that communities that have large voter turnout and communities where people are engaged in their community, participate, and vote often have better health standings. So this particular slide just compares Minnesota and North Dakota. And North Dakota averages over a period of time about 60%. Minnesota averages about 70%. But some of these numbers I find just horrifying. West Virginia is about 40-some% on average. 40-some% who vote. This is from another organization, Fair Vote, that looks specifically at the 2020 election. I do think, to be fair, they rounded up Minnesota's number because I think it was more like 78.7%, but around 80%, and North Dakota was about 65%. And of course, we want to change that. We want a much more robust voter turnout. So let's spend a moment talking about, so why don't people vote? Some quotes here on the page, and I want to point out specifically Ronald Reagan's. The right to vote is the crown jewel of American liberties, and we will not see its luster diminished. It is the crown jewel of American liberties. And in a little bit too, in another slide, I'm going to show you just this kind of overwhelming look at some of the laws that have been passed to either increase or decrease our voting rights. So the first reason why people vote is they view it as civic responsibility. And research also tells us that if you started voting when you were like 18, that you probably continued to vote. If you started early, you probably still vote. Research also tells us that there's then that habit that is really hard to break. But I heard an inspiring story just yesterday about an 82-year-old woman who is voting for the first time. I remember what I said about the League of Women Voters and how, to me, that's still pretty recent, what a big deal it is that we have the right to vote. This 82-year-old woman is voting for the first time. And when asked why she hadn't voted before, she said, well, my husband didn't think it was important that I voted, but he died last year, so I'm voting now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Voting for the first time at 82. So that kind of relates then to reason number 2. And I love the Swifties concept because I thought, hey, I already had that on my slide. There's Taylor Swift. So when influencers around you vote, you're more likely to vote. If your family, your friends, the people you engage with, if it's the norm with the cultural group that you hang out with, you're more likely to vote. Number 3 of why people vote is a significant issue. And certainly 2 lightning rod issues that often bring people to the ballot and should bring people to the ballot are reproductive rights and what is often discussed as the Second Amendment and gun control. So if there's an important issue to you, people also vote. But reason number 4 is really a very simple one, and that is because you're asked. So you all probably know somebody who doesn't vote. And if you do something as simple as ask them, do you have a voting plan? Do you know when you're going to vote? You're going to vote early? Are you going to vote on election day? Maybe you already got an absentee ballot ordered. Talking to someone, that relational piece, that being asked to vote changes people's decisions, which is why in the league we work really hard to do voter registration and things like this. Next Monday, I will be at Concordia with another league member talking about voting. On Tuesday, which is the first day for early voting in North Dakota, Whitney and I are going to be downtown Fargo doing reminders about voting. Wednesday, I'm going to be in Moorhead High School talking about voting. And hopefully you will do the same. Talk to the people you know. Those can be hard conversations, but it can also just be as simple as, you have a voting plan? So why don't people vote? Most commonly are things like, I don't feel like my vote matters. I feel like it doesn't really connect to me. Or even anger. You know, I can't even afford gas. I can't afford my groceries. Politicians don't care about me. Or there may be logistical barriers. There may be, what we talk about voter suppression techniques is the reduction of polling places. Many states across the country have reduced the number of polling places, and that is considered by the League a voter suppression tactic because it just makes it so much harder to access your polling places. We have heard stories of people who used to be able to walk down the street to their polling place. Now it is across town, like 25 miles. When I taught at Fort Berthold Community College and when I worked there, there's no public transportation in western North Dakota. The majority of North Dakota has no public transportation. It is not easy to get from Mandaree, North Dakota to Newtown, North Dakota. It is not easy to get from Twin Buttes to Minot. And those are logistical barriers that can impact accessibility to voting. So that brings us to election 2024. So when people think about the upcoming election, pretty normal, this is the first thing they think about. Who's running for president? And that's an important, important race. And a lot of attention is placed on that race. But in our desire to connect you to voting and to connect you with your community and to encourage your civic engagement, we want you to think local, to vote local. Because there are so many things that happen in your life that are impacted not by those people in the White House, but by what's happening in your city council, your county commission, your state. Vote local. That's why you all have a sticker that is encouraging you to vote local. This is a picture of the Fargo City Commission meeting. Wonderful packed house because they were voting on the budget. and a lot of people made their voices heard. And Moorhead City Council meetings, a lot of things happen in those meetings that impact your ability to fulfill your vision, your ability to do what you want to do with your work, with your business, with your children if you have them, buying a home, where you can live, how that is zoned. All of those decisions are made at the local level. And here's one of the most important ones of all. What happens in the school? So I'm a badass grandma for democracy, which is also a nonpartisan group like the League of Women Voters. And one of the things that is a real founding premise of that group is the fact that we want to protect democracy for future generations, just like the League does. So what happens in that school is training and educating future generations, people that will come behind you to provide, hopefully, your Social Security benefits, but also people that will have access to some curriculum or not, some library books or not, whether or not there's an advanced placement class in the school, whether or not there is a gifted and talented program in the school, whether or not there is special education programs in the school. Those are decisions made by these people. And so knowing what your school board is doing and knowing what your candidates believe and knowing what they stand for is really important. This is an example of a tax issue. A lot of people get angry about taxes. And the first thing we usually think about is income tax, which is a big deal. But income tax decisions are not just arbitrarily made by the President of the United States. The IRS, in conjunction with the budget and the decisions made by the House of Representatives and the Senate, there's a whole lot of things that happen that come about with that decision. But on a local level, again, the things that impact the amount of money you have in your wallet when you go about your daily life are impacted locally. This is a 4.99% property tax increase that recently happened in Moorhead. That's a local decision. So your vote matters. Every vote matters. We, the people, every vote matters, but particularly in local elections. So in 2018, in Maplewood, Minnesota, it was a tie vote for city council, with the winner decided by a coin toss. So let's see a show of hands with your vision for your community. How many of you want your elected official decided by a coin toss? I'm glad to see no hands went up. And this one's just stunning to me. So this is just last year. There was a city council vote, and the guy that lost didn't bother to vote. Didn't vote for himself. So, show of hands, how many of you do think if you're running for office that you should feel committed enough to the democratic process to vote? Yeah, good to hear, good to hear. So the League of Women Voters in our vision and in our work, we are all about education in order for you to feel confident to vote. Remember we talked about why people don't vote. One of the reasons people don't vote is they don't feel like they know enough. They're not confident in their ability to navigate that situation. And I really know that is true. We've been doing a lot of tabling at colleges, and a young person told me this just last week. I don't think I know enough to vote. You see right here this banner about Vote 411. You've got a bookmark on your chair about Vote 411. The wonderful thing about Vote 411 is when you go to this website, you can find out exactly what's on your ballot. You can go to that site, you're going to put it, regardless of what state you live in, regardless of what school district you live in, You put your address in there, and it will show you your ballot. Even more important, it'll show you how your candidates responded to questions. So every time there's an election, a general election in particular, the League of Women Voters, we send out questions to every local candidate. And then we put their answers into Vote 411. So you can go into that site and see how your candidates responded to questions. Now, unfortunately, despite our best efforts, a few candidates don't bother to respond. And I've had people say to me, if my candidate doesn't, if the person I thought I was voting for doesn't bother to respond, I'm either not going to vote for them, or I'm going to pick up the phone and call and say, you know what? How come you don't have your answers in Vote 411? Why didn't you respond? So all of the information you need can be found, including where your polling place is, what's on your ballot, how your candidates responded on Vote 411. But you can also, although we did our last one on Wednesday night, you can also find out about your candidates through our candidate forums. All of those are recorded. So even though, and there are a couple of organizations doing them. I don't think I remembered where they're at, but there is at least one more organization that's doing a candidate forum on homelessness. But all of our candidate forums were recorded. We did them in West Fargo, in Fargo, and then we had 3 this week in Moorhead alone. And it always kind of bothers me how small the turnout is for those candidate forums. I was a timer in one in Fargo last week, and I swear we had more people on the stage than we did in the audience. Now, my hope is that people are going to go and look at that recording and hear about their candidates and find out what they thought, or find out about your candidates in some other way. Send them an email, talk to them, question them, find out what they're thinking. And every state's Secretary of State's website is such a fountain of information. I'm so proud of the Minnesota Secretary of State's website, where you can get voter registration information in 11 languages. And you can find out if you're a college student, how to vote. This is the Secretary of State's website in North Dakota. Now, in North Dakota, you do not have to register to vote, but you do have to make sure you have a valid ID. And that's one of the ways in which North Dakota makes sure that you are eligible to vote. So do make sure that your ID matches the expectation, because there can be a change in your status. Let's say a new American became a citizen. If they don't take that information to the Department of Transportation and make sure it matches what that state entity has on them, they are not able to vote. So check it out. Make sure you've got the right ID. And of course, the League of Women's website for either Minnesota, North Dakota, or if you're somewhere else, is a fountain of information. Because we want voting to be accessible. We want you to participate in your democracy. We want you to vote, and we want you to feel comfortable with voting, which is why we're also big fans of absentee ballots. My husband became an absentee ballot fan a few years ago, and he gets his ballot, he sits there with his computer, he looks up everything. And it can avoid those transportation issues and some of the other things that happen. So this is that snapshot of all, well, not all, there's more actually, but a bit of a snapshot of some of the laws around voting. You can't see it, but I'm going to just point out a few. In 1776, white men with land were given the right to vote. Now, fast forward, although not very fast, we come to 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation. That didn't give voting rights or citizenship in a way that was expected. So the 14th Amendment in 1868 stated that all persons born or naturalized in the United States were citizens. the 15th Amendment in 1870 stated that the rights of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. So this is when African American men were granted the right to vote. But nevertheless, states would go on to pass many discriminatory voter laws to suppress African Americans from voting. Now, you heard about the 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment, but in 1876, the Supreme Court denied Native Americans the right to vote based on the 14th Amendment. Fast forward again, many other laws passed, including in 1922, the Supreme Court rules that people of Japanese heritage and Asian Indians are ineligible to become naturalized citizens. In 1924, the Indian Citizenship Act grants citizenship to Native Americans, but states again passed laws to prevent them from voting. It wasn't until 1965, in the Voting Rights Act, that many of those groups had their voting rights restored. And that is close. And since then, many other laws have been passed. And this year alone, since January 1, at least 6 states have enacted very restrictive voter laws. Another 11 states have expanded them. But voting's a big deal. It's a really big deal. One final thing to think about when you're talking to somebody about voting is to vote for those that can't. There are a lot of people that fought to give women the right to vote. There are a lot of people that have fought over the years to give many of these groups the right to vote that are no longer with us. School children who died in school shootings, servicemen and women who gave their lives for their country. But you want to vote, and you want to make sure that the people you interact with vote so that you can know that you're doing everything you can for future generations. Because again, back to your vision. Whatever your vision is for the Fargo Moorhead community, whatever the vision is for your work, for your creative life, for your love, that's impacted by who you vote for. So, a show of hands here. Are you a voter? Okay. Some of those were pretty tentative. But if you're willing to, tell me what propels you to vote. Anybody? What propels you to vote?
Local politics. I find them very interesting, and that's what makes me really excited about voting, is I have to memorize everybody's names that I don't generally know because they're not in regular media. Yeah, local politics.
Oh, you still have it.
Oh, yeah, I would say what propels me to vote is, as you mentioned, it hasn't been very long that I had the opportunity to vote, and so that's been something that's been instilled in me for a very, very long time. And now that I'm raising my own son, I want to make sure that I'm voting so that way he can be able to have a wonderful home to be able to have here in Fargo.
Let's just go across this front row.
Family history, immigrant family, and appreciating the rights that we have in America that they don't really have in many other places in the world.
I would say a civic responsibility to vote, as well as certain issues that affect me, like women's rights and queer rights.
Thank you. So one of the other things I wanted to do for just a second here is everybody, when you drove here today, you passed something in your community, some landmark, some public space. So turn, and if there's only 3 of you, you're going to have to turn to each other. But just share something that you passed on your way to work, on your way here today. Whether it's a park, a museum, what did you see? What was in your line of vision on your way here? Go ahead and share that. Just take a moment. All right, love hearing that conversation. So how many of you did have a park? Okay. How many of you had a public building, such as the federal building? Okay. Anybody want to shout out something entirely different? What did you see? Anybody? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Great. Great examples. And I'm sure that you can take that next leap for every one of those things that you saw. Whether it was a dike, whether it was maybe you came by the library, maybe you came through downtown, wherever it was, whatever it was that you saw in your vision, in your line of vision, that impacts and is impacted, not only impacts you, but what we do in these local decisions matter. And it impacts your ability to be who you want to be. So just a reminder of what the League of Women Voters is about. Our vision is a democracy where every person, every one of us in the we the people, has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. Because that part's a big deal. The confidence, the knowledge, the feeling like I belong here and I can participate. That's our vision. And so we fulfill our vision by doing things like this, but by empowering voters, we defend democracy. We are advocates for democracy. We encourage civic participation. We go to court with other partners to defend voting rights because we believe that every single one of us has the right to vote. So vote like democracy depends on it, because it does. So be a voter. And then join us. Every first Friday of the month, we have a speaker. This next Friday, November 1st, I think it's the 1st, we're going to be talking about voter or misinformation impacting voting. We're going to be talking about the ways you can combat misinformation. The first Friday in December is going to be a journalist panel. We're going to have the editor of the Fargo Forum. We're going to have a representative of North Dakota Monitor and Buffalo's Fire out of Bismarck. So come and join us. And it isn't just you can participate as a man in the League of Women Voters. You can be a member. But our first Fridays are free. You don't have to be a member to participate. So thank you for your time, and it was such a pleasure to be here. And I am just so excited of the work you're doing. And be a voter.
Okay.
That was awesome.
We are at time, so we won't be able to ask you any questions. That's okay. That's okay. You asked the crowd questions. But are you able to stick around afterwards so people have questions? Okay, perfect. You can't miss her. She's got really cool purple hair. So you'll find her in the audience. Oh, did somebody say something? No? No? Okay. Sweet. Well, we're going to wrap up for the day. As we close out Creative Mornings every week, we love hanging out with you, but we only get to hang out with you once a week. So we end the event, or once a month. Guys, I'm really struggling today. Once a week. Maybe it's subliminal. I'm like, please, I'm begging. Hang out with me once a week. I'm just here on Fridays, waiting every Friday. The Plains team is like, Emma, please leave. And I'm like, but maybe they'll come. Anyways, so because we only see you once a month, we have activities that we'd like to recommend to you to check out in our community because there's so much to do. So these are recommendations for the month.
Excellent. So I'm going to pick a couple of mine. So tonight, Theater B is doing something really, really cool called Be Afraid. Ooh, catch that? Theater B, Be Afraid. Ah, pretty cool. So for this particular event, it's a pay-as-you-will, pay-as-you-can, type event that's going to be a little spooky, a little bit of funny, and definitely something that you'll be able to be engaged with. So that's tonight. What time does it start, Crystal? I forgot to write that down.
I think 7:30.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
For those who enjoy having alcoholics treats, there will be the bar in the theater.
Whoa.
Wow.
Ooh la la.
So for those who'd like to drink, feel free to go to Theater B and Be Afraid. Hey, there we go. And my next event, this is going to be coming up next Wednesday. There's an open mic night hosted by a dear friend of mine, Frederick Edwards Jr. It's called Facing Your Monsters, and it's going to be at the Indigenous Center right here on First Avenue. So that's going to be at 6 o'clock, so definitely check that out. It's going to be really, really cool. And even if you're not a spoken word artist yourself, definitely be able to kind of come and be able to be creative and be able to do something cool. And then my last, quick plug, my other good friend, I realize I'm plugging all my friends, Max owns a great, cool studio called Tellwell. They're going to be celebrating 10 years. It's their 10th birthday party on the 13th. So from 4 to 7 o'clock, their offices is not too far from here. They're going to have a lot of really cool prizes and treats and just other things, and they're expanding their office space. So I cannot wait to be able to check that out and be able to see that. So that's 4 to 7 on the 13th.
Yes. My plugs are going to be Night Bazaar on the 31st. If you don't have Halloween plans, come hang out with us at Bruhala. I'll be there in a strawberry shortcake outfit, which I haven't finished making, so let's hope it's done by then. My next plug is the Plains does curator-led tours. I was looking at their website. They're really cool. There's so many of them. So I encourage you to check them out. We did one following Creative Mornings a few months ago where we walked through one of the galleries, and it was very interesting as somebody that doesn't have an education in fine art to understand a curator perspective on the collections that they have here. And then my final one that I'm going to pitch is Junkyard is having their anniversary party in West Fargo. So they've been open for officially, I think, a whole year. They've got all sorts of fun things planned. I'm going with my little sister. It's an all-ages event. We're going to go watch the Forefathers. They're a great band here in Fargo Moorhead. So I would encourage you check out the Junkyard Instagram for more information on that.
And of course, none of this would be possible without some amazing, amazing sponsors who see the vision for Creative Mornings Fargo, so we want to plug them again. So thank you again to Livewire, to Studio Freshly, Serial, Marvin, NDSCS Fargo, Downtown Community Partnership, and the Keelbone Group. Let's give a round of applause to them, our amazing sponsors.
Thank you.
And the Plains Art Museum is providing art collaging in the back.
Yes.
Feel free to join.
So when you're done, check out the museum. Feel free to co-work downstairs, but definitely check out the collaging in the back. They provide these crafts for you guys each month.
And if you don't know what collaging is, don't ask me. I don't know what that is. But go over there and check it out. It's going to be great because it's always great. So I'm just transparent today. It's
yeah,
fine.
I love it. Sweet. Well, thank you all for joining us. We're so grateful to have you here with us on Fridays, and we will see you next month. Thanks so much. Go be creative.